And welcome back in, everyone. Sorry about the voice. Had to go procedure a couple of weeks ago. Could not put it off to the off season, so finally got the go ahead from the doctors to get back into action starting today. So good to be back with you. If you're watching this on our Twitter feed at Crunch Time VRP, or streaming this or watching it later on our YouTube channel, thank you. If you're going to be listening back later to the podcast, on the screen right now, we have some information that we kept on the screen last year from the College Football Playoff Committee. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go out to Grapevine, do the seminar to really dive deep into how their criteria is put together as far as ranking these teams 1 through 25. And this year, we don't have the added problem of trying to stack Power 4 conference winners 1 through 4. It's going to be a straight seeding, which we actually preferred over the model that they were doing last year. So one of the things that the committee is going to look at is your strength of schedule, something that we've built into our model. Any head-to-head comparisons. So if two teams are within a couple of spots of each other, head-to-head will come into a factor. And then comparative outcomes of common opponents without incentivizing margin of victory. So something that I know our team looked at getting ready for this podcast was taking into account Indiana and Ohio State having a common opponent in Illinois. The margin of victory, as far as how big of a victory Indiana had over Illinois, and a little bit closer game with Ohio State in Illinois, the margin of victory will not have any bearings as far as how we rank these teams from 1 through 25. I'm going to give a little bit of a recap from our numbers going into last week, just as a reference here. So I'm not going to go through the entire top 25, but I will go through, let's say, the top 5. So going into last weekend's games, Ole Miss was our number one ranked team as far as our committee rankings go, followed by Texas A&M, Indiana, Alabama, Ohio State rounding out the top 5. As we look at the rest of the top 10, Miami was number 6. Texas Tech was 7. I think if I scroll back up a little bit, Georgia Tech was 8th. LSU was 9th. And then coming in at number 10, if I can reposition the numbers here, who was number 10? I'm not remembering who was number 10, but that just gives you an idea of like the top 9 or so teams. Now, let's get into this week because, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will try to grab them from either YouTube or from our Crunch Time VIP Twitter handle. So let's go ahead and jump into the top 25 because I'm sure some of these are going to raise some interesting questions, and we absolutely love that. So let's go ahead and jump in, and we're going to go from 25 to 1. Coming in at number 25 and moving up 5 spots in our rankings from last week is the Houston Cougars. Now, Houston is absolutely looking phenomenal there in the Big 12 midway through the season so far, or just a little bit past the halfway juncture there. coming in with a 6-1 record, in really good shape. If they continue to take care of business, this team could absolutely find their way into the Big 12 title game. And we know with that Big 12 title game, it will absolutely get you an automatic bid if you win the conference into the into the college football playoffs. So good job there by the Houston Cougars. Now, what's holding Houston back? Their strength of schedule and their strength of record. So if you think about your strength of record, think of that as your opponent's winning percentage, not factoring in for FCS opponents. So Houston really lagging behind there, but getting a very impressive win last week, did a phenomenal job there. Checking in at number 24 and coming off of a very difficult loss in Tuscaloosa last week to the Alabama Crimson Tide is the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, Tennessee still has a phenomenal record and still everything in front of them to play for with that 5-2 mark. But we'll caution everyone that is a fan of the Big Orange Nation there. 2 losses does not count you out, but it does mean that you have no more margin for error to lose any other games, because I cannot foresee right now a 3-loss team getting into the college football playoffs unless we have some really significant changes there. As again, down 12 spots from last weekend. So Tennessee was number 12. With that loss to Alabama, drops them down to number 24 in our rankings. Checking in at number 23, also out of the Big 12, also coming in with a 6-1 record, is the Cincinnati Bearcats. And once again, really been impressed with how this team has been performing early on in the season. And they are being boosted up by a stronger strength of schedule and strength of record. Both of those numbers we have inside of the top 40. That will absolutely benefit the Bearcats as we get deeper into the season. And as you can see, they were outside of our top 25 last week, but moving into the top 25 this week, coming in at number 23, Cincinnati. I am really impressed with what I'm seeing from this team thus far, and would not be surprised if they continue to win, that this team doesn't inch further up the rankings. Checking in at number 23 out of the American Conference. And folks, bear with me as we're going to have a couple of more teams out of this conference make their way into our top 25, moving up 3 spots. Once again, Tulane. Now, their strength of record not helping their numbers at all. Coming in at number 99 right now in that category, 57th in strength of schedule. So gotta hope, if you're a Green Wave fan, that the teams that are above them right now continue to win and continue to boost up that strength of record and that strength of schedule. So as we get deeper in the conference play, this is something to keep an eye on. Now, one of our biggest movers as far as going up this week will be our next team checking in at number 21, and that is the Louisville Cardinal. Off of that fantastic win on Friday night when they took down the Miami Hurricanes. As you can see, they were 31st for us last week, moving up 10 spots off of that victory to the 21 spot, and coming in with a 5-1 record, 60th strength opponent strength of record, 44th strength of schedule. That's only going to improve as the ACC has a few more teams that are going to be ranked above Louisville. If Louisville continues to win out, this team has an excellent chance of making their way to Charlotte and playing for the Atlantic Coast Conference championship and a guaranteed spot into the college football playoffs. We're going to spend another trip back to the American Conference. As I told you, right now, the American is absolutely by far and away our highest ranked group of 6 conference so far. So checking in at number 20 is the South Florida Bulls. And we know this team had a very competitive game against Miami, but knocking off Florida early on in the season, absolutely benefiting this team right now. Now, strength of schedule wise, outside of the top 75, but strength of record 51st, they're going to continue to be supported uh, as long as Miami continues to win. And if Florida is able to reel off some wins towards the latter part of the season, that's only going to strengthen their their positioning there. So sitting there with a 6-1 record, South Florida in prime position to make their way. And as you can see, moving up 9 spots, we show a lot of value on this team. Now, checking in at number 19, a team that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the Navy Midshipmen. Fight on and roll goats. And what we're loving about this midshipman team so far is just a continuation of what we saw last year. This team is gritty. This team is absolutely well coached. They're by Brian Newberry, and they continue to execute week in and week out in all 3 phases of the game. Now, we know that their strength of schedule is going to drag them down just a little bit right now, coming in at number 87, but with a strength of record at number 69, having that big game against Notre Dame still on the horizon, moving up 1 spot, my beloved Navy Midshipmen. Checking in at number 18 out of the ACC, and that is the Virginia Cavaliers. Tony Elliott right now for us, coach of the year. Not so much for what his team is doing right now, but considering what that university and that program has gone through over the past couple of years with the loss of 3 of their players being murdered by one of their former teammates, and the university standing by Tony Elliott. They are absolutely reaping the benefits of that this season, off to a fantastic start. Got a little fortunate last weekend against Washington State, but sitting there with a 6-1 record, undefeated in conference play, this team is in a very good position to continue to move up the charts as far as our rankings go. And as you can see, moved up 5 spots last week from number 23 up to 18 this week. So if Virginia continues to win, they're going to continue to inch up even further on the rankings for us in our crunch time college football playoff rankings. So fantastic job there. Now, checking in at number 17 off of a very disappointing showing, and that is the Texas Tech Raiders. Texas Tech absolutely did not take advantage of a game against Arizona State last week where they should have absolutely performed much better. This was probably one of the more shocking outcomes of last weekend's games to be played outside of the Miami loss. And that's why you saw, if you're looking at our rankings right now, last week, Texas Tech was our number 17 coming in, dropping down 10 spots with that loss. Now, what's hurting Texas Tech right now, even though they're sitting there with a 6-1 record, both their strength of record and strength of schedule outside of the top 68, they're going to need some of their opponents in the Big 12 to start rolling off some wins to really boost up their resume and see if they can't get back into the hunt there to go to Dallas to play for the Big 12 championship. Coming in at number 16, and this one is going to be a surprise to some of you, but not a surprise to us based on where we're looking at from a data standpoint, and that is the Oregon Ducks out of the Big 10. Now, Oregon moves up 6 spots with that win that they had last weekend, sitting there with a 6-1 record. And the reason why we have Oregon so low, you're talking about a strength of schedule that is 73rd and a strength of record that is 86. Sorry, not sorry, Oregon Duck fans. And want to say a quick hello to my good friend, Coach Meg. I know she loves her Ducks, but right now, Oregon, after getting thumped by Indiana and not really having another signature win under their belt, sorry, we cannot place you any higher currently this week than coming in at the 16th spot. But we do recognize that this team has absolutely had a bounce back performance, and that's why you saw a move up 6 spots in our rankings this week. Checking in at number 15, and folks, this is a team that we'll be talking about at the end of the show as one of my surprises, and that is the Texas Longhorns coming in at number 15, despite that 5-2 record. But what's pumping them up over Oregon, and I can go ahead and let you in on this one right now. Texas is being benefited by strength of schedule 13th because the Buckeyes right now are undefeated, and some other teams that are on Texas's schedule having a really good season. You're talking about Texas A&M, Oklahoma still highly ranked. So that's what's propping up Texas right now. But make no mistake, 5-2 record. At this point in the season, if you have 2 losses, your third loss will be your death nail as far as the college football rankings are concerned. So we're going to see a couple of 3-loss teams kind of bunched here together. We're going to start to see some of those teams go from 13, 14, and 15. If they lose any more games this season, they will not be in our top 25 because with 3 losses, that will absolutely take them out of contention. But up 11 spots, despite that overtime win against Kentucky, once again, that strength of schedule is what's pushing Texas up the board for us right now. So wanted to go ahead and get to that while we were looking at it. Checking in at number 14 off of a very hard-fought victory, moving up 7 spots, is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And want to say a quick hello to my good friend Irish Bill. This team moving up 7 spots after that win against Southern Cal last weekend keeps Notre Dame in the hunt as a 2-loss team there. Now, what's benefiting Notre Dame? The 2 teams that they lost to have a combined 1 loss, being Texas A&M and Miami. Right now, that is benefiting Notre Dame. So what Notre Dame needs to do is, 1, take care of business, cannot lose another game this season. 2, need Texas A&M and Miami to continue to stack victories, boosting up both that strength of record and that strength of schedule. Because right now, Notre Dame is sitting in a very good spot. Even though they're outside of the top 11, they're in still a really good spot, especially if you look at the rest of their schedule coming up. Making our way to number 13, and I do believe this is our final 2-loss team, and it is, and that is the LSU Fighting Tigers. LSU was in my backyard. I had the privilege of being there at Vanderbilt Stadium when LSU really got handled quite convincingly in that game against Vanderbilt. 5-2, as I mentioned, cannot afford another loss. And why is LSU the highest rated 2-loss team? I'll get to that right now as well. It's because they're top 10 in both strength of schedule and strength of record. And that's largely due to teams on LSU's schedule, both upcoming and have already played, being ranked extremely high right now. So That's what's benefiting LSU. But make no mistake, another loss by LSU will absolutely take them completely out of the running as far as making the college football playoffs, because their losses are starting to come in conference. And once you kind of cross over that 3-loss barrier, really going to be hard for you to jump a 2-loss team there. Now, checking in at number 12, another team that took a significant drop this week, and that is the Miami Hurricanes. Fresh off of that loss against Louisville, still sitting there with a 5-1 record. Carson Beck did not look good in that game, but neither did the Miami Hurricane defense. Did not show up against that game. Credit to Louisville head coach, the Brown brothers, doing a masterful job there with Miller Moss. Cannot overstate the job that they did. But back to Miami. Miami does not hold its own fate as far as getting to the ACC title game. They're going to need either Louisville to lose twice, or for Georgia Tech or a Virginia to lose a couple of games there in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So that one loss, because it's in conference and because we don't have division play anymore in the ACC, that is something that Miami is going to now have to kind of do a little bit of scoreboard watching. But Miami, if you continue to take care of business, and I do mean from now to the end of the regular season, because I don't think Miami can afford another loss when you look at where their strength of record is right now, 56. Now their strength of schedule is 26. So Miami needs to not only continue to win, but have some things kind of shake out for them in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Now, as we get to the top, right outside of the top 10, coming in at number 11, and that is my beautiful friend, Mama Deb, and all of Sooner Nation, coming in at number 11. The Sooners are up 5 spots, bouncing back off of that Red River rivalry loss a couple of weeks ago to Texas. Bounced back and had a very clean performance last week, and that's why you saw them in our rankings move up 5 spots from number 16 last week. So phenomenal job there by Oklahoma. 6-1, but we know that schedule for Oklahoma is extremely backloaded. Don't believe me? To quote our good friend Kurt Cignetti, head coach of Indiana, Google their upcoming schedule. Folks, it is the 27 bloody Yankees for Oklahoma left on the schedule. So, Oklahoma, you want to make the college football playoffs. I think you will be afforded one more loss, but really nothing more than that. And your gauntlet starts this weekend. Now, what's propping up Oklahoma? Top 20 in both strength of record and strength of schedule. So that is something that they're absolutely benefiting from. And that's why you see them ranked where we have them ranked at, right outside of the top 10. Coming in at number 10 as we get into the top 10, that is one of their SEC brethren, the Missouri Tigers, fresh off of an overtime win against the Auburn Tigers, 6-1 record. Now, for Missouri, we got a tale of 2 data points here, and that's why moving up 5 spots off of beating Auburn last week, I should add. But why do I say we have conflicting data here? Well, as far as the strength of schedule goes, top 10 is for strength of schedule, but as far as strength of record goes, outside of the top 68, coming in at number 69. So Missouri just needs to take care of business and really cannot afford any more slip-ups. Coming off of that loss a couple of weeks ago to the Alabama Crimson Tide, Missouri, because of that strength of record, I don't think Missouri can afford another loss during the regular season. So Missouri Tigers sitting in a very interesting position there. Let's get a little bit deeper inside of that top 10 here. And checking in at number 9 out of the Atlantic Coast Conference is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Brent Key doing a fantastic job there at his alma mater. Have this team undefeated with a very sound country butt whooping of the Duke Blue Devils last weekend. Could not believe where the line was in that game. Now, you'll see that even with that win, Georgia Tech slips down one spot from 8th to 9th this week, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Georgia Tech, despite being 7-0, 95th as far as our metrics, as far as a strength of record goes, 55th as far as strength of schedule goes. That is not going to help the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. But what will is keeping that 0 in the loss column. As long as they continue to do that, they're going to probably, continue to be in our top 10. But down just one spot, despite having that big time win last weekend over Duke, absolutely helping out the Yellow Jackets and helping out the Atlantic Coast Conference. Let's head back to the Southeastern Conference and anchor down the Vanderbilt Commodores, moving up 6 spots after that win against LSU, a game that they were favored to win by. And folks, as we kept watching the markets, that number never swung back to a pick 'em as far as Vanderbilt goes. So our friends out in the desert had the utmost confidence in not only Vanderbilt getting the win, but getting that win by more than 3 points. And Vanderbilt absolutely paid that off quite soundly there. So Vanderbilt sitting there with a 6-1 record. Now, we also have conflicting data about the Vanderbilt Commodores as well. Strength of schedule wise, top 20. Strength of record wise, outside of the top 70. So once again, Vanderbilt's not getting a lot of assistance from some of the teams that they've played thus far outside of Alabama. So need to continue to win, and they have a showcase showdown with Missouri coming up this weekend. I understand College Game Day is going to be here in my beautiful home city, and it is going to be another jam arena there for the Vanderbilt Commodores. So anchor down, Commodores, and right now sitting in a very good spot there inside of the top 10. Checking in at number 7 for us this weekend, but moving down 5. I'm sorry, folks, that graphic is incorrect. So BYU actually moved up 11 spots. So pardon me, and I'll get that corrected after the end of the show. But moving up 4 spots was BYU instead of moving down 5 spots. We had them and our next team that graphic overlap. So moving up from number 11 to number 7 this week is the BYU Cougars. And BYU coming off of the win against in-state rival in the Holy War, Utah. Fantastic job there by Coach Sataki and his staff there. BYU, kind of like last season, sitting in a very beautiful spot there if you are a fan of the Cougars there, because they are right now the highest rated team for us in the Big 12. And with an inside track to the Big 12 title game, we could be hearing a lot more about this team coming up. Now, checking in at number 6, and they are the team that is down to 5 spots, and that is the Ole Miss Rebels. As I mentioned at the top of the telecast, Ole Miss last weekend was our number 1 ranked team as far as our playoff rankings go. Now, that loss to Georgia does not take Ole Miss out of the hunt for any of their dreams as far as making the college football playoffs this year. But what it does is it highlights some of the conflicting data that we're seeing with Ole Miss. Again, their strength of schedule, top 20. Their strength of record, 83rd. So, Ole Miss, I don't know if with that strength of record, if Ole Miss can afford um, anything beyond one more loss. I think a 10-2 Ole Miss Rebels still have an excellent chance of getting into the college football playoffs, but certainly a three-loss Ole Miss would certainly be out, especially when you're looking at the strength of record component. And the team that just beat Ole Miss last weekend in a defense is the Georgia Bulldogs, and hunker down, um, go Dogs. Want to say a quick hello to my good friend David Pollock, who does a fantastic show. Love catching David and his wonderful crew over there each and every week. Moving up 8 spots is your Georgia Bulldogs, Dave. And sitting there with a 6-1 record, that one loss coming to Alabama. And what's benefiting the Georgia Bulldogs right now is the fact that they have a very solid strength of schedule and strength of record, both inside of the top 45 there. And that number should only continue to be strengthened as we get deeper into conference play, especially with Georgia Tech sitting there with an undefeated record. That is certainly going to help out the Georgia Bulldogs. So, Dogs, continue to take care of business. Maybe one more loss does not completely take you out of contention right now, but offensively, Georgia's playing phenomenally. Defensively, not so much. Now, here's where I'm going to have to put my phone on silent because checking in at number 4 out of the Big Ten, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And Ohio State sitting there with a perfect 7-0 record and have looked absolutely phenomenal this early on in the season. And Ohio State moves up one spot from number 5 last week. And want to say a quick hello to all of our good friends there who love the Buckeyes, and especially my good friend Amber, who absolutely will be blowing my phone up as soon as she sees this. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you why Ohio State is sitting at number 4 and not at 1 or number 2 at the worst. What's holding Ohio State back, there's not anything from a data standpoint that Ohio State could do to fix it. And the reason I say that is because they're being drugged down from a data standpoint because of 2 teams that are on their schedule. Texas right now sitting there 2 losses, a third loss would make that win over Texas a little bit less than team that was supposed to be a marquee game for Ohio State in 2 weeks was the Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State already has 4 losses on their resume, fired head coach. So beating Penn State is probably going to drag their numbers down a little bit. So Ohio State is only being hurt from a number standpoint because of absolutely Penn State looking like a complete dumpster fire. And moving on from your head coach this part of the year, certainly not anything that Ohio State can control. So Ohio State fans, just bear with me for the next few minutes as I get through this. Your team is firmly right now inside of the top 5. And when I look from, matter of fact, let me just take a look at the gap between Ohio State and Georgia right now. That is a pretty significant for Ohio State being ahead of Georgia, who currently sits at number 5. So, Buckeyes, supporters, nothing to worry about, because remember, if you have one of those top 4 seeds when the playoff rankings come out, your team is going to get a bye. So it's not going to be so much about where I have them or ranked in and stacked up, or where our team has them. It's projecting the teams and not necessarily the seeding. So I fully expect here in a couple of weeks, when the playoff committee rankings come out, despite us using their very own criteria, that they're going to have Ohio State at 1. We take no issue with that, because Ohio State is truly deserving of being that high. But right now, from our data standpoint, when we look at a strength of record and a strength of schedule, both being outside of the top 60, nothing that Ohio State can control, that is what's putting them at the 4th spot right now. Now, checking in at number 3 is America's team, and that is the Indiana Hoosiers. And folks, if you are new to our show or new to our podcast, Kurt Signetti, for the past couple of years, we have dubbed him America's coach, and therefore that makes the Indiana Hoosiers America's team. So that's where that moniker comes from. Indiana does not move up or down, as they checked in at the number 3 spot for us last week. Still continuing to look impressive. And the reason why Indiana gets the slight nod over Ohio State is because, unlike Ohio State, Indiana thumped Oregon on the road, and they don't have Penn State dragging down their strength of schedule or their strength of record. So that's the biggest bump for Indiana over Ohio State as far as our metrics go. All right, checking in at number 2, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And despite having that one loss, what our data is showing right now is Alabama is by far and away the best one-loss team in the nation. And trust me, we're looking at the data as for they lost there. But what's benefiting Alabama right now is both a strength and a strength of schedule. As far as their strength of schedule, top 10 as far as that goes, top 30 as far as their strength of record goes. And when you look at their last 4 wins, all coming over teams inside of our top 30, that is what has shot the Alabama Crimson Tide up the board here and moving up 2 spots from last week, fresh off of that win against the Tennessee Volunteers at home, third Saturday in October matchup there. So fantastic job by Kalen DeBoer, bouncing back from that one loss in week 1 on the road in a true road game against Florida State. It's going to be described as a rope around the neck for Alabama, but not an albatross right now, because as long as Alabama continues to stack wins over teams in our top 30, it's not going to be something that they can't overcome. Similar to what we saw with Ohio State last year when they lost the game to Oregon and then dropped the game against Michigan. Still had a strong enough record that kept them firmly within inside of our top 10. Right now, that's why Alabama's firmly within inside of our top 5, is because of that strength of record and that strength of schedule. And then checking in at number 1, moving up 1 spot, is the Texas A&M Aggies. The Aggies were number 2 for us last week, but with that loss by Ole Miss to Georgia, coupled that with a very gritty performance against a improved Arkansas team after firing Sam Poolport Pittman and replacing him with Bobby Petrino. This has been a different Arkansas team over the last couple of weeks, and our data is recognizing that. And that's why the Aggies right now sit in the number one spot. Now, we're getting conflicting data with Texas A&M as well. Strength of schedule, 9th overall. But when we look at that strength of record, 69th, A&M does not have a stranglehold on that number one spot. And I'll share this data point with you. When we look at the gap between Texas A&M and Alabama, it is 0.74. So that margin there, you're talking about a win by Alabama this weekend. If they're able to beat South Carolina, could absolutely threaten Texas A&M. But because I think A&M has LSU this weekend, so with that being LSU's third loss potentially, that will be something that we'll look out for upcoming. So that's the top 25. I'll give you the conference rundown right now as far as how we have the conferences ranked. The SEC absolutely by far and away with the most teams in our top 25 with 10 teams there. The Big 12 and ACC have 4 teams. The Big 10 only has 3 teams. The same amount of teams as the American Conference. And then, of course, Notre Dame being the only independent. That is where we get the just the bracket matchup as of today. You're talking about teams that would get the bye. Texas A&M, Indiana, and Ohio State. As far as the matchups go, you're looking at with Navy right now being slightly ranked ahead of South Florida. They would come in at the 12th spot. They would head to Athens to face the Georgia Bulldogs. Right now, you're looking at a match where Ole Miss would host Oklahoma. Enough, those two teams square off this weekend. There's a 99.9% chance that that game will be on the big show this weekend. BYU, as the highest ranked Big 12 team, they would host Missouri. And in a very intriguing matchup, the Vanderbilt Commodores would host the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in that matchup, as Georgia Tech right now being the highest ranked Atlantic Coast Conference team. They would travel here to the Music City to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. As we like to say, not all precincts have reported yet. We still got plenty of games left to go in the season. So still a lot of work to be done on that front. So we did have a couple of questions, and I already addressed a couple of them, but to touch on them once again. So why is Ohio State ranked 4th despite Alabama having that one loss coming against a very terrible Florida State team? We talked about it. And strength of record for State being drugged down by a terrible Penn State team. With every loss, pardon me, with every loss for State, it's just going to drag that strength of schedule down for Ohio State. Again, Buckeye fans have nothing to be concerned about as far as their team not getting a bye, especially, like I said, sitting there with a 7-0 record. I think if both Indiana and Ohio State run the table, you could potentially see the loser of the Big Ten championship game still getting one of those buys, depending on what happens elsewhere. Next question: why is Vanderbilt ahead of an undefeated Georgia Tech? As I mentioned, both teams are struggling with strength of record, but Georgia Tech being 22 spots lower and with a strength of schedule being a 39 position difference there, Vanderbilt gets the nod as far as that goes. And then what was my biggest surprise in this week's rankings so far? I was absolutely surprised Texas was in the top 15 with those two losses and really not looking good against Kentucky. Found a way to get that win. Is still propping up Texas. That was a surprise to me. Another surprise for me was I thought Louisville, after getting that win over the Hurricanes, would be inside of the top 20. Right now, checking in at number 21. Pardon me. I thought Louisville might be a little bit higher in the rankings, but again, still plenty of time for. And another surprise, and that is the Cincinnati Bearcats. I would watch out for the Bearcats, led by their fantastic defensive tackle in Corleone. Just an absolute monster there at the defensive line position. The Godfather controls the line of scrimmage when he's on the field, and absolutely looks phenomenal so far. So that is what surprises I have thus far in the rankings. But then again, like I said, it is extremely early, and I'm really impressed by what I am seeing from a lot of these teams right now. So I'll keep the chat going for another 8 or 9 minutes here. Again, like I said, if you have any questions, whether it's during the live show or if I catch it on the playback, feel free to drop any of your questions in about the rankings so far. We'll gladly answer back, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on our YouTube channel. Love interacting with all the great fans during college football season. And this is just the start of our rankings. We'll more than likely move this back to Sunday night as to get those rankings analyzed Sunday morning, get the graphics up, and we'll probably move the show back to its original time slot on Sunday, pretty much right before the Sunday night football game. So about 6 p.m. Central Time, we'll go for the full hour or 55 minutes or so, and we will recap some games up that we saw this week, and just seeing how the rankings will adjust, because our rankings are not static. As you saw, there were teams that won last weekend, like Georgia Tech, in a very dominant fashion, but still dropped down a spot. That is one of the things that we talked about the committee was supposed to be doing on a week in and week out basis. A completely new every week. And that's how we built our model out each and every week, is to as that new fresh data comes in each and every week, we're trying to adjust to that and account for any and all results from every single team each and every week. So our rankings will represent not only who did you play, but how is your season does. So, are you being dragged down by your opponents underperforming on the season. As we mentioned with Ohio State is being held back because Penn State, once again, already has 4 losses. By the time we get to the end of the season, Penn State are 7 losses, and that is just not going to benefit Ohio State's strength of record. So nothing Ohio State can do about it. Very difficult non-conference game with the Texas Longhorns. Ohio State is absolutely rooting for Texas to continue to win because that's only going to improve their strength of record. But again, Buckeye fans, as long as Ohio State takes care of business, they are going to be firmly within top 4, and that will absolutely get them a bye when we get down to the college football playoffs. So continue to take care of business, Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, and Texas A&M. You're sitting right now in a very good position. Like I mentioned, that strength of record for a couple of teams, Indiana and Texas A&M, need to have that propped up a little bit. Same with Ole Miss. A win over Oklahoma will absolutely be very significant, but that's not the win there and going against a very eager team in the Oklahoma Sooners. Have not finalized the schedule as far as which games will be on the. But as I look at the top 25, and especially games that could be impacting our playoff seedings, I think we can firmly say that Ole Miss and Oklahoma will be on the show. Certainly Missouri Vanderbilt, because I think that that's going to be a very significant game for both teams in that outcome. So two games right off the bat with the biggest conference history. The South Florida Bulls will travel 3 hours west of me here to take on the 6-1 Memphis Tigers. That game will absolutely be on the rundown. I'm looking at Houston and Arizona State. I think that this could be an elimination game here as far as the Big 12 goes. And then I'm searching for one more game. And fans in the chat, if you want to drop me a game, absolutely, we'll see about adding it. But right now, if I had to lean game, and we typically don't like to do 3 games out of one conference, but I think from how big this are, we're going to go ahead and book it. Texas A&M traveling down to Baton Rouge to take on LSU in a must-win game for the LSU Tigers. Those will be our 5 games, and we'll stack them up order of importance this way. We'll have in the leadoff spot Houston and Arizona State. We'll have South Florida and Memphis in the 2 spot. Hitting in the number 3 spot will be Missouri and Vanderbilt will be in the 3 spot. Hitting cleanup, and this will be our co-games of the week, Ole Miss and Oklahoma. And then our game of the week will be the Texas A&M Aggies versus LSU, because this is truly for LSU. A loss here going into the bye week could be very problematic. So those will be our 5 games. I'll tweet those out here momentarily. But as it stands right now, I think those will be the 5 games that we break down. If we get some interesting requests from our followers on Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter at CrunchTime VIP. Shoot those over. We may add a 6th game, but right now, as far as our top 5 goes, that's how we're going to look going into the podcast on Friday. So we'll have a great show. Hopefully my voice will be a little bit more recovered by then. But thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you on the big show for the Week 9 rundown. Can't wait, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. As always, feel free to check out our website at crunchtimesportsadvantage.com. You can also find us on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone. And as always, God bless everybody.